Good evening. Oh man, I miss all you guys, all the fans out there, the subscribers. We're here with the real OG Rich, and we have a very special guest, one of my longtime friends, Eddie. He's our first fill-in host. Twizzy's out there being a good dad, working the late night shift over there at his power plant, like Mr. Burns, right? And Eddie was nice enough to fill in for us. The fans have spoken, Rich. A lot of the feedback I've been getting up as Rich pulls on the Collective Thought AYN hat, alter your narrative. But they suggested that we go a little shorter, and they want more content. One of the things that's happening as I get older is that I'm listening to more and more podcasts. So of course, Drink Champs had a big impact on me. I thought it was amazing. And lately, that $1 million worth of game with Wallow and Gilly the Kid, man. And Wallow said it the other day. I sent it to you, Rich. He said, "Listen, there's people out there who are willing to give you millions of dollars for your content. So don't matter what you think it is and what people say about it. Go put your content out there." And that's why we're here today. So we're gonna do something a little different. I invited Eddie because Eddie's always been with high integrity regarding his. What's the word I'm looking for, Eddie? Help me out here, Eddie. With his
strong opinions, I guess.
He's very opinionated, but he's also logical, intelligent, and knowledgeable enough to not argue for the sake of arguing. But yeah, I mean, that's why we're here today. We missed Twizzy, but we got a very good replacement for today, and hopefully we can eventually get Eddie on here to get his interview because, as you know, Rich, man, he was my inspiration with running. We ain't gonna get into that today, but Edward is a 2019 or 2020 New York City Marathon finisher. Which one was it, Eddie?
Yeah, so I completed the 2019. I'm doing it again this year. I'm doing Chicago next year, hopefully for London the year after.
Excellent, right? So again, that's not for today, but that's why he's here. So everybody knows anyone who enters the Collective Thought podcast has to be either a great parent or someone who inspires me in some way. And then eventually we give Eddie his trophies while he's still here, right? Still giving him his trophies while he's still in the game. All right. So really quickly, guys. So me, Rich, and Twizzy. So with people I respect, we all have a lot of responsibilities. And unfortunately, it's kind of been getting in the way of the podcast, but I promise to be more diligent with getting you more content. So, I've been so busy with coaching and being a dad and working 2 jobs that I kind of put the podcast to the wayside. But every day there's someone in my DM like, "Oh, what's going on? Where you guys at?" And I'm listening. So we're here today, more content, quick podcast, and segueing right into that. So being a good parent, right? So one of the things I absolutely love lately is coaching. And I didn't realize how much I loved it until Joey made a travel team. And then me and him collectively decided that wasn't for him. Eddie, shot me a text. He's like, "Hey, what's going on, man? Why'd you take him out of a travel team?" And I had to explain to him, sometimes the coaches there do not see the impact they have on these kids. And Joey went from being probably the biggest, fastest, most aggressive kid on my team last season to someone who just stands there, has no idea what to do. And but it was good for both of us. So now I have my old team back. He's back to running and gunning. But one of the funny things, guys, so we're at the mall the other day, me and Joey, and there was those metal posts there. And I'm like, "Oh, just leapfrog that." And he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Leapfrog the post." And he's like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And I'm like, "You're joking, right? You kids don't play leapfrog?" Guess what, guys? Kids have no clue what leapfrog is. And that's going to segue me into, as I'm coaching more and more. So now I'm coaching Joey's soccer team and I'm coaching Joey's basketball team. And I'm having a very difficult time, what I kind of label as finding the dog within them. So they have no dog. They have no fight in them. They don't have that killer instinct. They don't have that step on someone's throat while they're down and attack instinct. So I kind of want to talk to you guys about where in the world do you think that comes from? I remember playing ball with both of you at 2 separate parts of Regis Park history. Eddie, how old are you? You're 3 years younger than me, right?
I am 37. I almost forgot.
So you're -3 and Rich is +2, right? You're 2 years older than me, Rich?
Yeah.
All right. So there's 5-year span, but people don't realize that in Brentwood history that's huge, right? So, but we would play. Like, I mean, I remember Rich one time got pushed. I'm not going to say by who or how, but he almost died because we were so competitive out there trying to win and dunk on people. And then even Eddie, man, Eddie was one of the fastest kids ever. I was shocked one day when he just zooming around, and but he played, and I feel like, I don't want to say geographically, but I feel like part of what's going on with the team I have now is that, in theory, so Joey plays in Sachem. We're in Brentwood. I think part of it is geographically. There's not really a lot of toughness out there. Where do you think it comes from, guys? Where does that inner aggression to win and be competitive come from?
Well, I'm sorry if I'm cutting off. I think I don't think it's geographic anymore. I think more so as parents are getting younger, we're looking at some of the issues that we had when we were younger, and we want to prevent those things from happening. So I think we're over coddling and over padding the room when we have our child, and we just continue that on to growth, and we don't really show them the small grits, of small perseverance, of small little things of we don't want our kid to lose ever, and they don't understand what it feels like to lose, and when it gets to a certain age, they don't know how to respond to that.
So do you think that plays into them not being as aggressive, or?
100%. I think within social media aspects and everybody wanting everything instant, I think the kids and parents love the idea of the outcome, but don't see the work in between. I mean, I actually have this currently with my child. As you know, me and my the mother of my child, we're not together, so we have different philosophies as far as parenting our child. And I'm into, if my kid wants to get involved in something, I'm all in 100%. Like, even the equipment that I have right now, my kid wanted to do a podcast, I'm going to buy all the equipment. Now, I don't feel comfortable with putting that out there. I let her record it on her own, and then I kind of become her own little fan. But even with just something as simple as podcast or running, she likes the idea of the race, but she doesn't like the idea of the training for it. And I think and that's where the philosophy ends with me and the mother. When the mother's like, "Oh, she doesn't want to do it. She doesn't like the idea of it." I was like, "That's the actual work part. That's the part that we have to get involved in there." And I think that's where we're lacking with our kids right now, is pushing them to actually finish what they said they want to start. And that's where the grit is just like not there anymore.
So I mean, I saw you, and one of the things, and I'm like you, I hate social media, but one of the good things is I love seeing, your kids. I love, like, there's not a post that I don't like with someone kids in it, but like I saw your daughter this morning, she's golfing, and then she went to track afterwards to run. Now, does she have that competitive when she runs, or she just likes doing it?
She likes she likes the end result. And that's where I'm trying to teach her, and I kind of guide her in the aspect of workout. So, for example, like she sees the end result of her finishing that race, but she was second to last, right? So I try to explain to her, you're not really racing against everybody else. Don't feel, it's okay to not be the one ripping the tape at the end of it. But she got her personal record that day, so we celebrate that. So I think that's where maybe you as a coach or some parents that have that coaching in their background understand that we have to kind of like coach our kid into saying, you know what, you didn't win, but this is look at your hard work, look at you progress from this time to this time, and that's what makes them want to continue on. Because I think when I see kids that are running with our running group, when they don't see that they're winning, they just immediately give up, and their parents just encourage that, and they're like, you know what, I don't want my kid to experience that loss.
One of the things I'm seeing a lot is now my parents love me, and I can't lie, I love being loved. I love that they'll be like, "Oh my God, thank God!" When I came back, they gave me hugs and kisses, like, "Oh my God, Coach Joe." But one of the things that's happened recently, so as I got new kids, I almost have to feel out parents' temperature to see how far I could push the kids. And they're gung ho. The kids, they hate running, they hate sweat. I think it's the most weird thing. Like, they hate sweating. They're like, "Oh, but we're sweating. That's what's supposed to happen." But like I said, and I'm just bringing it up. I like to view things, Eddie, as a social scientist. So I'm so intrigued by what attributes can create behavior and what attributes kind of curb behavior. So Rich, like I said, our front of my yard in the street basketball sessions were notorious for competitiveness. Where'd you get that? Where do you think that came from?
And you know what? Just go back to it. I didn't like losing, so it's like you take the losses, but you also know, like, let's run it again. Like, regardless, I'm not. You got me today. We'll play it again tomorrow. Like, it's dark outside. Like, you're like, yo, Rich, you got to go home. I'm like, nah, I got to get one more win in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I think that nowadays kids aren't being put like everybody wants to win, but they're not accepting losses. They're scared that they're going to lose, so they'd rather quit than lose. Unfortunately, I have the same deal inside of a classroom where kids would rather not answer the question and get it wrong instead of possibly getting a chance of getting it correct. Like, I'm like, how do you not answer a question on a test? They're like, well, I was going to get it wrong. I'm like, so did you think you would get it right if you didn't answer it?
Yeah, me and you talked about it the other day, and I'm seeing, that social anxiety, that kind of that test anxiety is real, and I think we all had it, but I think it's just different now. Where, like you said, like now kids are kind of predisposed to not even do it if you're afraid that you're not going to succeed at it. And
right, I think they're willing to accept it. They're good with the law. They're good with taking that L, as long as they already predetermined that they were going to lose. They're like, oh, I'm going to lose anyway, so I'm good with losing. They're like, if I try and I don't get what I want, then it was a waste of time for me to even try to get there. And I think that translates into sports too, because I don't think there's a kid that plays a sport that wants to lose. And they also have to understand that you're going to take some losses with it. If you don't know that, if you don't accept that part of the game, you're never going to like the game. You're going to want to walk away every time. Like, your team can go 0-11, and there'll still be kids that are like, Coach Joe, we want to get there next year. We can't wait. And then you have some kids that are like, I'm done playing soccer. I never want to see it again in my life. It's like, you didn't get the outcome you want, so you just quit. And that's, unfortunately, that's a generation that's coming up right now that I don't know if they're going to be leaders or what, but they're going to be people that are going to be considered adults, and there's no telling what the world's going to have for them.
Now, Eddie, you too, like I said, I mean, you were younger than us. What gave you that competitive drive? And one of the things too, and I'll kind of start giving a tell, so to speak, about what, but you and your brother, I think, are the most comical, polar opposite people I've ever met in my life. And it's so drastically different. And I'm not gonna, I mean, you're laughing because you know why, but we're not gonna bring that up now. But do you think, Eddie, that like having siblings creates that kind of competitiveness?
Yeah, I think having siblings create that competitiveness. You want, again, I think similar to Rich, I don't like losing. And then wanting to.
But where did that come from? So both of you, where did that come from?
Yo, losing, I don't care who you are. No, losing doesn't feel good. Like, you accept the losses, it happens, but who wakes up and says, I'm about to lose today, I can't wait for it?
Well, the shocking thing, guys, so my team, there's about 6 or 7 kids that are 100% okay with losing.
Well,
no, I'm saying you should be. I'm not saying you can't be okay with it because you know what happens. But you shouldn't look forward.
But think about that. And I knew if I'm on a team with either one of you, I know that none of us are going to be okay with losing at all. Think about that concept. They're 100% okay with losing. Today we played a team that we played multiple years. Our team's different. And they beat us. They were winning 4-0 in 3 minutes. And now I'm yelling like a maniac, and the parents are trying to, and maybe 2 or 3 kids kind of turned it around. We got to the point where, a kid pushed Joey, and this is kind of, I was proud of him in essence, but also as a dad, it's tough. But he literally just ran in and leveled his kid. He got a penalty for that, but you said that was the wrong thing. And in the car ride home, you're like, "Oh, good job, buddy."
I didn't yell at him. He knew for sure. Like, dad moment, upset coach moment.
I said, listen. I said, listen. I said, I understand why you did that, but you got to remember the team first. He's like, I know, but they keep pushing. I'm like, that's fine. But again, that negatively affected your team. Well, but it was good for him. So he had that after I gave him that Coach Carter speech. He had that. He was like, you know what? Boom. At least we'll do this. But then everybody else was just like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. And that's really what I'm kind of, and there's no right answer, but for you two specifically, especially you, Eddie, I mean, we did duathlon together. We go running together a few times. You have that, even if it's, and we're me and Rich, or me and you, we're competitive together, but it's almost like a positive competitive. Like, oh, Eddie, and that's the thing. Like when I saw you jogging, I'm like, if Eddie could do it, I could do it. Not that, and we've talked, not that I'll ever be your speed, because you're a little flash in your own regard. But miles are miles. So whether I clock miles at 9 minutes per mile and you do it in 7 or 8, at least we did the 3 miles, and that kind of competitive nature is really what I'm
think. I think the biggest, I think the most simple answer is just that we experience loss early.
See, look, this guy's good, man. This guy, Twizzy, you're out, bro. That's it. Moving on from you, buddy.
Rich said the same. I'm like, I don't like losing, and I experienced loss early, and you don't like the way it felt, and you kind of picked yourself up. Your parents told you to, brush it off and keep it going. I think parents, again, they made it okay to lose because they don't want to hurt their kids' feelings. So now the child took that in as in it's okay to lose, period. So they don't even want to attempt because regardless whether I win or lose, nobody's going to give me any constructive feedback.
I think
go ahead real quick.
I think it also goes into, I don't know when the generation it started with. It could be those that are currently young parents now, but everybody won a trophy. Everybody had a pizza party at the end. Like, there were times like if you didn't win, you didn't get anything. Like you legit had to take a L. Like it was a loss. You didn't get no pizza party. There was no celebration of like good game for the team. We had a great season. Like, yo, we lost. Like, that's it. Hopefully you're out next year.
I wish Twizzy was here because Twizzy and I had this conversation and I joke around with Rich the other day, but even that generation now, Twizzy's 31, right? Eddie's 35. So somewhere from 35 and Twizzy's 31, they stopped learning how to go outside and do things too. And we joke. I go to the gym with them. I'm 40 years old. They should be running laps around me, but they can't do push-ups. They can't do pull-ups. They can't do dips. And I'm jokingly like, didn't you guys ever wrestle each other? Didn't you guys ever go, running or fighting? Like, I almost feel like
that generation was the last one where we kind of experienced the transition over to technology.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, you gotta remember, Joe. Like, we were going into adulthood when the internet really came out.
Yeah, I mean, but even my generation, even the video games itself was still competitive. I still play the sports games, the things like that. My daughter's, the number one game out there in the world is like Roblox or Minecraft. Do you even lose in that? Like, there's no winning or losing.
No, you do lose. You just got to build a bigger team. Like, that's the thing. Like, they don't take losses.
Actually, some games of Roblox you do lose, but there's one game Joey had, man, where you're just driving a car around and there's no, you can't win or lose.
My kid plays a game where she just adopts people or something. I don't even know what it's about. It's confusing.
No, but it's a lot of it. Playing it, I was lost. All of this stuff is just is being built into. It does take away from a competitive nature. Once, like, when you can play a game forever, there's no end to it. You don't win. Like, you don't care about losing. Losing doesn't matter to you because there's nothing to win. As long as, like, their games, like, as long as they can continue to play, they're good. Think about it. We had games that you only had 3 characters. If you lost those 3 characters, those 3 men, game was over. You had to start all over again.
Oh God!
Like, these kids don't get that.
Traumatized.
They get to play for like
Roblox is endless. I know from my bill.
So it's like you never get to lose. Like, even with video games, like you had to lose. These kids don't get to.
And think about this, guys. I mean, me and Rich's favorite game, and Eddie played with me too when Rich went to the Army. But 007, right? Or even Mario Tennis, right? On the 64, we plug 4 people come in and we get competitive there and we play face to face where you can have that kind of socialization where you're not going to beat me. And you, even that, like, some of these kids, I
think we overcompensate. I think our generation understands mental health. So we overcompensated to try to protect our children from having the mental health issues that our generation had. And then we're also a generation that now as parents, we have too much information in our hands. Like I live in New York City and I have this, I don't know if the Citizen app is available in Long Island or where you're at, Rich, but the Citizen app is essentially an app that a small petty crime pops up, your phone alerts. Yeah. So like a person got stabbed, like I'm about to go do a jog at night and I'm like, somebody got stabbed 3 blocks away. I'm gonna stay home. So we have this idea of mental health. We have this idea of over communication as far as knowledge. So we just don't let our kids go outside and play. the simplest thing doesn't have to be a regular sport. Something as simple as tag, when you find out, or I used to go to the playground and see who was the fastest kid. That's when you first experience your first loss or your first win, and you're like, oh, I can't wait next week when I go to like recess and I'm gonna beat that kid. They don't have that experience anymore because we kind of sheltered them into this world because we're overcompensating for I believe mental health and also the just the amount of information we get every 2 seconds.
You know, and both of you know, like, you know, I do therapy. So part of my therapy, and this is why I kind of do the podcast this way, because I kind of want to get you to the point of what I'm thinking, and then it kind of confirms what I was thinking. So what you said earlier, Eddie, is that we experience loss early, but I think more importantly than that is that all three of us didn't have things so expendable. You know, my son, he'll have these toys and it's gone and he has no clue it's gone and he doesn't care. We had our stuff and it's like, where is my black and blue G.I. Joe? It was here yesterday, because you only had 3 or 4 of them and our parents weren't buying us anything. And I think that kind of vacancy, so to speak, with their items starts there, because we had to cling to our stuff. So part of what we experience in our happiness, kind of those small wins in sports and wrestling, or, you know, Rich introduced me to Knuckles and I'm like, what is Knuckles? And he's like, no, I just punched my fist. And I'm like, why are we doing this? But since we're competitive, you know what? We are doing this, right? And they don't have that because everything's so technological. So my son, he'll be like, oh, so-and-so FaceTime me, and then we played blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't like that. You know, when we were kids, me and Rich, we would get on our bike and go see who's out and ride around and that activity. And then we would do something else that was active because there was nothing technological. But I really think, and it goes back to, you know, Eddie, if you, and I know you have heard some of the podcasts, but those adverse childhood experiences really come to play with all of us. And I think that is what kind of increases our competitive, because all three of us experienced some adverse childhood experiences that kind of created already losses in the house. So whether it be getting spanked to the extreme, because and no offense to Eddie, but I've seen his dad beat up his brother with a Nintendo 64, and we joke about it now. But think about that.
He was just disciplining them.
Back then it was like that. So me and Eddie, neither one of us hit our kids, but I think when you're at home and you're kind of experiencing these negative things, you need to find something to kind of boost your own ego, and that kind of that win. It's almost like even though it's a physical win, it's almost like a mental win too. I need to win at something since I'm losing at home. And I think I felt that way too. And I'm not gonna speak for both of you, but like I wasn't winning at home. You know, I was suppressed. My feelings were suppressed. My thought process was suppressed. My emotions were suppressed. And I think when I was with my friends, I was able to go yell and curse and be competitive. That's why I was so competitive. It's because, again, I was losing at home. What do you think about that concept, guys?
No, I agree. I think, but also we have like a tribal instincts where, like, depending on geographically what we were doing, it's you want to become better at that particular sport or thing. Like where we lived, it was mostly basketball. We dribbled the ball and go down each block, and there was always somebody ready to play us. You know, it could have been soccer, it could have been ping pong, it could have been whatever. Like what we don't have this community of kids that talk to each other anymore outside of like interacting like via Zoom now.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they don't have that tribal instinct anymore because they're so distant from each other. I mean, my kid was in a charter school where she didn't have kids near her anymore. So she didn't have somebody to walk home with. We just recently moved to a really good neighborhood where we put her back in a public school, and she immediately like developed in my mind mentally within like 2 or 3 months where she's like walking home. She's doing things that I remember when I was a kid that I should have been doing this a long time ago. So I think geographically, I think the interaction with other kids and what you said before, you want to gain the losses that you had at home.
So we have about 8 minutes left on this quick segment here. And I kind of want to segue because, you know, it's a double-edged sword with parenting. And I think you know, Eddie's one of the people we talk to frequently about co-parenting, and our situations are similar but slightly different. But one of the things that popped up the other day, and I sent it to Rich almost immediately, was, and I'll pull up the article here, but there was a mother who turned herself in from her son in, right? So mom turns in son 13, who cops say shot a second boy in social media dust up regarding Snapchat, right? And we kind of, I put a poll up and it was 73% would turn their child in. Quite honestly, I would never turn my child in. And I'm gonna give you my thought process on that. I think everything I do, and both of you know me well enough, my job first is to shield him from anything. I would rather get in trouble for shielding him than turning him in, because I think the detriment of me turning him in would be so negatively impactful to him that I don't think he could ever recover from that at 13. Again, that's just my opinion. And it's interesting because I always tell people I have two sisters. I have one that will, if I did anything at all, she would turn me in immediately. And one that'd be like, who? Nah, I don't even, he don't even live here. I'm not going to mention who's who. You guys know who, but even that, you know, but as a father, if my son did something, I would rather protect him and him know that I have his back and I get in trouble than him having that broken heart of me turning him in.
Well, I hope that never happens to anyone here, but
right.
I think,
let's lock on everything, right?
The goal, I think, in my opinion, would be to have that person talk my child into turning themselves in. I think it's like you said, it's double-edged sword. You can go really, really far left and be that person that just turns them in, and you're never going to get that gain back, that trust back from your child ever. Or you can have that person hide, and then you're putting yourself at risk, and your child will actually feel that as well, because they're putting you at risk, and you go to jail, and now they feel that trauma of having to put your family in that risk. So you have to hopefully you have an open communication with your child where the child makes the right decision and you guys come to that conclusion together. But it's that's a really hard one. I think my goal would be to try to make my child turn themselves in, but I don't know if I would probably wouldn't turn my child in if it comes to guns on my head.
You know, think about the guy with the girlfriend when they were you know, traveling across country, and when he went to Florida and his parents shielded him, and people are looking at him negatively, but at the same time, and again, double-edged sword and everyone's opinion, but isn't it your job as a parent to shield them until you figure something out? Or like you said, to kind of convince them that this is the right thing to do? Because, and I love that, Eddie, because both of you know, everything I do with my son is collective. I don't say, you're doing this. He loves it. When I pick him up, what are we doing this weekend? And let's talk about it. Where are we going to eat? Not, we're going here. And I think, and this is why I bring this topic in right after the other one, because think about, both of you know my mom and dad, and neither one of them were going to say, hey, what are we doing? It's like, no, you're doing this, and that's literally it. Your mom was super nice, Eddie. So, but dad was a little kind of old school Latino. But think about that. Now, think about that case where the guy, I wish I knew his name, but either way, everybody knows, right? So he drove to Florida, and his parents shielded him.
The alleged strangulation
So Rich, what would you do? And you're probably, let's talk about your brother, right? Would you turn your brother in, or what would you do? Now,
listen, it's not even a question about it. No, like, listen, after reading the article, they're like, oh, he was, you know, she watched the video, she knew it was. I'm like, listen, I don't care what it is. I said, in order for me to turn my child in, even anybody close to me, that means that we've already sat with the lawyer. The lawyers already spoke to who they need to speak to. And we've already had the decision. We already know that when you go into this police station, that you're coming out after an hour. We're not even going to play this game. I'm not turning. You think I'm really going to call and be like, hey, my son is right here. I know that he shot somebody. Come pick him up. Not happening. I don't care who it is. It doesn't make a difference. Brother, family, it's not happening. Like,
now, what if you knew they were guilty?
And what's that mean to me?
Okay.
So
it is what it is. The law can do what they have to do. I'm not required to go tell you. If you say it was him, then you do your part and come find them. Knock on my door. If you don't have a warrant, if you ask me, is he here? I'm going to tell you he's not.
Yeah.
You have a warrant, that means you can enter the premises. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to willingly give you what you're supposed to be trying to figure out yourself.
You know, and like what you said anybody close to you, because even if it was you guys, I think I would have that same demeanor. And I just think, even for all three of us, I think there's a degree of loyalty that kind of has dissipated along the timeline of kids too. I don't think that people have that loyalty anymore. I don't know where it went. But people, they're just not loyal to anything or anyone anymore. It's just like look at these people, like, you know, and I hate to use this term because I'm a 40-year-old man, but people trying to get clout. It's like, I'll turn on my best friend if it makes me more popular, which is just ridiculous.
That's all it is. Everybody live in this world of self-gratification instantly. Like everybody wants to be, they want to go viral. Everybody wants to do something. So whatever it means to do that, they are willing to do. These people will, like, it's crazy that there's people that will do stuff like, oh, I'm going to prank my dad, like, and do something crazy. Like, I'm going to slap him or something. I'm like, are you crazy? Like, what world do you really want to get popular for, like, slapping your dad and then your dad destroying you? Like,
well, think about that, Rich. Think about that a few weeks ago. I got a email at my workplace talking about be wary of children's new TikTok where they slap a teacher. And I'm just in my head like, please don't. Please. You know, listen. Eddie, I'm professional. Please don't do so. Please do not do so.
Legit. Legit. I was like, if this happens, I said, it's not going to be it's not going to be the TikTok that they want to see. It's going to be one of those viral TikToks. Educator destroys child after TikTok video.
Well, you're going to see our generation saying he deserved that one.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a generation saying, oh my God, I can't believe he touched them. And then there's going to be an entire generation that's going to be like, that's what that kid needed.
Well, back to for the first subject again.
Eddie, let me cut you off. So we got about a minute left. So let's go into our next segment. We'll just wrap up this part A now. Really quickly in the minute 21 we have. So this kind of was spurred to one of our brothers in podcast, Masters of None. Follow them on YouTube and also Instagram. But they kind of interviewed Twizzy the other day, which was amazing. Twizzy kind of gave a beautiful synopsis of what collective thought is. But with them, in theory, having, you know, being a master of none, they had so much content. I kind of wanted to have this be where we can kind of talk on current events as well, where it's not just interviews, but let's, you know, people who are collectively intelligent, knowledgeable, and logical can kind of have a discussion too. So let's move to part 2 now. We'll finish that up, and then we're going to bring up Eddie's favorite topic, vaccinations and Kyrie Irving. Thanks, guys. We'll be back in a few.